What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. So today's video is for all you Abysscraft lovers that are enjoying Gensetsu and stuff like that, and we're going to see today if any of the Idolmaster Cinderella girls are here to support any of the older decks or are going to buff up something for the Cinderella girls package. Alright, so the first card we're looking at is Kanzaki Ranko. So she's a 4-cost 3/3. You can evolve for 1, but when she comes into play, you can choose a follower on the enemy field, deal 2 damage to it. You can also activate for 1 play point and 2 lesson cards. You can choose up to 2 followers on the enemy field and deal 2 damage to them. So this looks like a pretty okay ability. You're only able to deal 2 damage to something for a 4 cost, and you're spending it and you're only getting a 3/3, along with having to use the extra play point to deal another 2 damage to something, which seems kind of little worth, but that means 5 play points in total. Let's go ahead and see what this evolve card looks like. And then we have the Ranko Evolve. So she turns into a 4/4, but on Evolve you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. From among them, you may put a card into your EX area and put the rest to your graveyard. You can also activate for 1 play point and then 2 lessons to choose up to 2 followers on the enemy field and deal 2 damage to them. Alright, so it's a card with some decent stats, of course. I mean, it's a 5 cost that you paid for a 4/4, but you're able to look at the top 4 from your deck and put a card into your EX area. You just have to make sure you use at least 1 lesson card, because if you're playing this in Cinderella Girls, it's going to be full with those lesson cards, but make sure you use that activate ability or any of the activate abilities for your under Cinderella Girls so you can make this happen. Alright, and next up we have Koshimizu Sachiko. So she's a 2-cost 3/3, and if your leader's health is 10 or less, this card gets Storm and Bane, and when she comes into play, deal 2 damage to your leader. Alright, so this card is really going to be good in the Lust deck, especially since you're going to be doing a whole bunch of damage to yourself. A card that just deals 2 damage to your leader, and then is a 2-cost 3/3, and that is Storm as long as you have 10 or less health. I think that's pretty good. Alright, and next up we have Mukai Takumi. So she's a 3-cost 3/3. You can evolve for 1. And then looking at the Takumi Evolved, so she turned into a 4/4, but on Evolve you choose a follower on the enemy field, destroy it, and then you deal 3 damage to their leader. Alright, so this card is really good for 3-drops, because usually 3-drops only deal X amount of damage, like, you know, doing 4 damage to something and then you swing into something else. Well, this card sure enough just spends 3, you evolve her for 1, and then you straight up destroy a follower and then deal 3 damage to their leader. Alright, but moving on, we have Kurosaki Shitose. So she's a 2-cost 2/2, and as long as this card is on your field during your turn, your leader and all of your other followers will not take any damage from effects. You can also activate for 1 play point and 1 lesson, choose a follower on the enemy field and deal 3 damage to it, and this effect can only be used once per turn. Alright, so looking at this card, I think it's a pretty good tech option, honestly. So if you're going up against a deck that uses a lot of spells, Runecraft, I'm looking at you of course, that just takes care of your followers and you're trying to figure out why am I losing so much, well, you can put out a card like this and they have to make sure, it's like Diamond Master, you have to make sure they focus this card first, because you're not going to take any damage from effects through leader or your other followers as long as this card's on the field. Alright, next up we have Whispering Dreams. So it's a 2-cost quick spell. So quick, choose a follower with the original cost of 3 or less on the enemy field and destroy it. Put the top card of your deck to your graveyard. I don't know about you soldiers, but I think this card is very good for Necrocharge, and I think it's just very good for Abyss in general, just to spend 2 play points to not deal 3 damage to something. You get to straight up destroy a follower that costs 3 or less, and you get to mill one from the top of your deck. Alright, and next up we have Shirayuki Chiho. So she's a 3-cost 3/3, and when she comes into play, you deal 2 damage to your leader and then draw 2 cards. Alright, so I honestly think this is a good new staple for the aggro decks, especially if you're going to be dealing damage to stuff and been using cards like Valnarique to where, hey, however many damage I took this turn, I'm going to be doing that damage in terms of burn damage for my strike. So you deal 2 damage and you get to draw 2 cards for spending 3 play points for a 3/3. I think that's pretty fair. Alright, and next up we have Yamato Aki. So she's a 7-cost 5/5. You can evolve her for 1, but when she comes into play, you choose a follower on the enemy field and you deal 5 damage to it. Alright, so this card looks a little bit lackluster in comparison to the other cards that we were looking at that just straight up destroy things for lower play points, but let's go ahead and see what this evolve does. And then we have the Aki Evolve. So she turns into a 6/6, but on Evolve you choose up to 2 followers on the enemy field and you deal 5 damage to them. Alright, so I can only see this being used in like Cinderella Girls if you're like stuck or something like that, but only dealing 5 damage to a total of 10 to one follower and then 5 to another for a 6/6, and then you spend 8 play points. Yeah, I don't think that's working. Alright, and next up we have My Life, My Sound. So it's a 3-cost spell. You choose a follower on the enemy field and destroy it. If Sanguine is active for you, you deal 2 damage to its leader. A very interesting card, I'd like to say myself. Now, just spending 3 to destroy a follower is nice because it's just any follower on the field, because hard removal is the best removal. And then if Sanguine's active for you, you get to deal 2 damage to its leader, so you get to remove a follower and you get to deal 2 to them. Alright, next up we have Matsunaga Ryo. So she's a 3-cost 3/4. She has Ward, and last word, you choose a Dorima spell from your graveyard and you put it to your hand. Well, luckily we have cards that are able to get spells back into our hand, because we do have cards that are going to be milling us from the top of our deck. That's just how Abysscraft goes sometimes, just for the necrocharge. So this is a good card to have. And next up we have Hayasaka Mirie. So she's a 3-cost 4/3, and if there are 5 or more Dorima's cards in your graveyard, this gets rushed. She also comes into play fanfare and look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and from among them you may put a card to the top of your deck and then put the rest to your graveyard. I'm absolutely loving all of this necrocharge support, since you get to just look at the top 3, whatever card that you want to draw into next turn, go ahead and put it back on the top, and the other 2 just go straight to the trash. Alright, next up we have Fujimoto Rina. So she's a 2-cost 3/1, and when you play this card, if you have evolved a follower this turn, subtract 1 from this card's cost. And when she comes into play, if Sanguine is active for you, choose a follower on the enemy field and deal 3 damage to it. Not only is this a 1-cost 3/1, but if Sanguine is active for you, you're going to be dealing 3 damage to something, and also it becomes a 1-cost as long as you've evolved a follower that same turn. Alright, and next up we have Hoshi Siyoko. So she's a 2-cost 3/2. You can evolve for 1. This card is unable to attack any enemy leaders or followers on the enemy field, and at the start of your end phase, add 1 to your leader's health. Alright, so kind of a net positive if you're at least pinging yourself at least 1 at the start of your every turn, or at every turn you play a card. This is not a bad card to have, so you can get at least a little bit of a refund on your life back. But let's go ahead and see what this evolve looks like. Alright, and looking at the Hoshi evolve, so she's still a 3/2. And at the start of your end phase, deal 1 damage to all enemy leaders, and then last word, so when she dies, deal 1 damage to all enemy leaders. So she loses that ability to not be able to attack, so now she's able to attack, and then if this card manages to reach that end phase, she gets to be doing a total of 4 damage, and then when she dies, she gets to do another 1 damage to all enemy leaders. Alright, and the next card we're looking at is Last Daylight. So it's a 2-cost spell. You choose a follower on the enemy field and deal 3 damage to it. You give +1 attack to all followers with the original cost of 1 or less on your field. Alright, so it's nice that you're able to deal 3 damage to a follower on the field, and you're able to give a buff to your followers that at least cost 1 or less. Now, the second question that I have is, are there any followers or token followers that cost 0 on the field, or just in general in the game? Let me know about down below in the comments, because I am pretty curious on to what that answer is. Alright, and we have our alternate art cards. We have the Kansachi, Ranko, and the Sachiko. I'm pretty sure I said those names right. I'm sorry if I missaid them. I'm trying to get these Idolmaster girls like remembered, so whenever I see these cards personally and I play against them, I'll know what they do. But alrighty, soldiers, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you watching. Tomorrow is the day Cinderella girls will finally be in our hands. If you guys have already bought boxes and have them coming in, or splits and stuff like that, whatever you guys want to purchase for stuff. But I'm hoping you guys have the best pulls for whatever you do in terms of boxes and stuff like that. But be safe in whatever you do tonight, and be safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do.